Every day, thousands of stray puppies are left to fend for themselves. Abandoned, hungry, and scared, they roam the streets in search of safety, love, and food. Today, we bring you the heartwarming story of one such puppy, a little soul, who found hope in the most unlikely place. If you love animals and believe every puppy deserves a loving home, hit that like button, share, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. It was a cold, quiet day. The wind carried the sound of traffic in the distance, and the streets seemed empty until I noticed a small, dark shape curled up by the side of the road. At first I thought it was just a shadow, but then I saw it move. It was a tiny, helpless puppy. She was shivering, alone, and so small. The wind rustled through the litter on the ground, and the distant honk of a horn startled her. Her ribs were showing beneath her dirty fur, and her eyes told a story of fear and survival. I didn't want to scare her, so I stayed low and moved slowly, letting the food speak for itself. Trust takes time, especially for an animal that's only known fear. Her little whimper broke my heart, but I knew I had to be patient. With every bite, she started to realize I wasn't there to hurt her. Her initial hesitation slowly melted away as she inched closer, her tail giving the faintest of wags. The warmth of trust began to replace the chill of fear in her eyes. I was there to help her, and she was beginning to believe it. It's incredible how a small moment of trust can change everything. For the first time, she let me touch her. Her tiny, fragile body trembled at first, but as my hand gently rested on her matted fur, I felt her start to relax. It was as though she had been waiting for someone to finally show her kindness. In that instant, the wall of fear she had built around herself began to crumble. The connection we shared in that moment was undeniable, a bond born out of her vulnerability and my promise to protect her. I wrapped her up in a blanket and held her close. Her small body was trembling, her fur matted and damp from the cold air. As I cradled her in my arms, I could feel her heartbeat rapid and full of fear. But as the warmth of the blanket surrounded her, she began to relax ever so slightly. Her wide, frightened eyes softened, and for the first time she seemed to realize she wasn't alone anymore. It was time to take her somewhere safe, where she could finally begin to heal. Saying goodbye to the streets is the first step towards a better life. As I took one last glance back at the cold, desolate street where I found her, I felt a mix of emotions: relief that she was no longer part of that harsh world, but also a deep awareness of the countless others still out there. This moment was not just an end to her struggle, but a beginning of hope, healing, and a chance at a future filled with love. Our first stop was the vet to ensure she was healthy and to start her on the road to recovery. The clinic had a faint smell of disinfectant, and the walls were lined with posters of happy pets. The veterinarian, a kind woman with a warm smile, gently approached the puppy. Despite her exhaustion, the little one flinched at the first touch, but as the vet ran her hands carefully over the puppy's fragile body, checking her eyes, ears, and teeth, a sense of calm began to settle in. The vet spoke softly, explaining the puppy's condition. She was malnourished, dehydrated, and suffering from a mild skin infection. The words were heavy, but the reassurance that everything was treatable brought a sense of relief. Shots of the puppy being weighed, her tiny frame looking even smaller on the scale, emphasized how much care she needed. The vet administered medication and offered a small dish of specialized food. For the first time, the puppy's eyes seemed to hold a glimmer of trust as she nibbled tentatively on the meal. It was clear she'd had a rough start to life. The evidence of hardship was written all over her thin frame, her hesitant movements, and the dullness in her eyes. Yet, as the vet explained her condition and offered assurance, it became clear that this fragile little being had a chance to reclaim her life. The possibilities ahead felt monumental: a warm bed, nourishing meals, and the simple joy of safety and love. In that moment, hope replaced despair. I brought her home and gave her a safe place to rest. The moment she stepped inside, her timid eyes darted around, taking in the warmth of the room. I laid down a soft blanket in a quiet corner, and as I set her down gently, she seemed to sigh a deep, exhausted release of tension. Her tiny body, still trembling from fear and fatigue, curled up tightly. Within moments, her eyes began to close, and soon she was in a deep, peaceful sleep. It was probably the first time in days she felt safe enough to rest. The soft rise and fall of her chest as she slept brought tears to my eyes. This was the first step in her journey to healing. With food, love, and patience, she started to come back to life. Each day brought new milestones. Her once hesitant tail began wagging shyly, her cautious steps turned into playful hops, and her eyes, once filled with fear, began to sparkle with curiosity. She started to explore her surroundings, nibbling on toys and responding to gentle words with an eager glance. Day by day, her trust grew, and so did her personality. The once frightened pup blossomed into a lively, affectionate companion, full of energy and a zest for life. The final step was finding her the perfect home, a family that would love her unconditionally. When I saw the smiles on their faces and how much she loved them, I knew I'd found her forever home. From the streets to a loving home, this little puppy's life changed forever. And it all started with one simple act of kindness. There are millions of animals out there just like her, waiting for someone to give them a chance. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more rescue stories. Together we can make a difference.